Hi, it's me, Vicki Marie. I hope you're all fine and well and enjoying life. Now then, in today's video, I'd like to talk about a case in Great Britain that has been a little bit, I think, forgotten because of all the publicity about the Emma Bulley case. Sorry, not Emma Bulley, the Nicola Bulley case. Now, of course, in the time that we were all worrying about where Nicola was, who had disappeared by the river, I have a video on the channel about this case if you're one of the very few people in the world who doesn't know anything about the Nicola Bulley case. I do have a video on the channel that you can watch to get you up to date. Now, while this was all going on and while Nicola was missing and we were all really focusing on that, a terrible tragedy happened during this time. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, another thing I just wanted to mention is there have been, a few things that have happened with the Nicola Bulley case, like new CCTV being released to a true crime channel. Though not being reported at all on any of our regular media outlets here in, well, not here in Britain because I live in Spain, but in Britain, nothing about this new CCTV, or in fact there's been nothing about Nicola Bulley whatsoever. It's almost as if there's a media blackout on this case now until the results of the autopsy later on in the year. I feel like something's bubbling under the surface and it'll be coming out very soon. There's a lot of things that I'd like to comment on or say, but I don't feel that I should because nothing has been released officially. So it's not. I don't feel it's the right time yet to comment on it. Though a lot of people are commenting on it. I won't be commenting until there's actually something tangible to comment on as far as Nicola's concerned. Bless her. May she rest in peace. So today I'm going to talk about, as I say, something that happened during this time and was a bit overshadowed by the disappearance of Nicola Bulley, because it's a terrible tragedy, if you like, terrible case. A solved case, but very, very sad, and this happened on February the 5th. And on February the 5th of this year, Emma Pattison, her daughter Lettie, well, Emma Pattison is 45, or was 45, her daughter Lettie is 7, and they were both shot dead by Emma's husband, George, before he turned the gun on himself and shot himself. So 3 souls were lost that day, 3 people left the earth that day. 2 victims, one a victim of her husband, one a victim of her father, and of course really George was also a victim probably of mental health, a mental health victim who unfortunately decided that his only option was to kill his family and then kill himself. So just trying to me, this is a case that is very sort of typical, well, it's like family annihilation, isn't it? But often family annihilators like Chris Watts, etc., they kill their families because they want to be with someone else and they don't kill themselves, but often they do kill themselves also, and this is what George did. I'm going to start off now. Another reason why perhaps this case, it did receive a lot of attention in the UK at the time, but it didn't receive the international attention that the case of Nicola Bulley has received because it wasn't such a mystery. Obviously it was, apparent who the perpetrator was right from the beginning. And I think, the only reason, because these kind of things happen every day more or less, women are killed by their partners, ex-partners, etc. Children are killed by their parents. But this received a lot of attention in Britain because of where it happened. So, and who Emma was. Emma was the headmistress of a very prestigious private school in, it's called Epsom College in the south of England. And it is the sort of school, it costs £45,000 a year to send your child there. It's got, it's in its own grounds, it's a very prestigious school. A lot of famous British people went there or sent their children there. So, for this reason, this is why it captured a lot of attention. And Emma, when she was young, Emma was like singing. And she won several singing competitions when she was a schoolgirl, as Emma Kirk in Lincolnshire, where she was from. But she went on in her career to become the headmistress or the head teacher of Croydon High School, which is in London, or near London. And then in September 2022, she was given the job as headmistress of this very prestigious school. So if you're watching from America, this is like Yale or Harvard or one of these very prestigious schools, but you have to pay to send your children there, and it's expensive. She had been made the head. She was the first female headmistress of this school, and she became the headmistress in September 2022. It was, a fantastic achievement for Emma. She'd done such a good job of being the headmistress at Croydon School. That's how she ended up being offered this job. And I'm just trying to sort out in my head how to do this timeline to let you understand the background to this case. So I just wanted you to know what the school, how important the actual school is, if you like, or the type of school it was. Now, Emma and her family, they lived in a house on the grounds of the school. So this is a job where you're given, we call it tied accommodation. So, for as long as you're working there, there's a place for you to live. It's also, we sometimes call it here in Britain, golden handcuffs, because obviously it's great to be given somewhere to live, and it looked beautiful, in these beautiful grounds. But it also means you're sort of, you're tied to that job, because you can only live there as long as you're doing that job. So sometimes we call these kind of things golden handcuffs, because it's great, but it ties you down. And Emma moved in there and George stayed behind in their house. They had a £1.5 million property in Caterham, and George sort of flitted in between the two properties while they sold that property. And in fact, I think he had only moved in properly 3 weeks before into this new house, if you like, that was tied to the job. Now, an inquest on Emma found that she died of shock, hemorrhage and gunshot wounds to her chest and abdomen. Whereas Lettie, the little girl, the daughter, 7 years old, and George, Lettie was shot in the head, and George, it was a self-inflicted shotgun wound to the head. So how did this tragedy come about? I mean, what led up to this tragedy? The three of them were found dead in the home, which is in the grounds of the school. And at 1:10 in the morning on the 5th of February, approximately 1:10 in the morning on Sunday, the 5th of February, they were found dead inside the property. So what led up to it? Let's have a little talk about George first. I think I want to talk about the three victims, if you like, and I wanted to start with George because although obviously George is the perpetrator of this crime, or the other two crimes, or well, three really, I suppose, if you include himself, out of respect to his family too, because we must remember that whatever George did, his family's not to blame for it, and they're probably wondering what the hell is going on, or what the hell happened. It must be awful sort of living with the... I think sometimes, you know, it must be terrible to be the relative of a perpetrator of crime, because you have to live with the fact that, especially, well, if you're the mother, that you gave birth to this person that's gone on and did terrible things, or you're the father, you fathered this person, or I think murder leaves a lot of guilt behind. And when it's a psychopath who murders, I think the guilt only applies to the family, because I don't think the psychopath ever feels any guilt. Of course, George can't feel any guilt because George has taken his own life. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about him. George was 39 years old, so he was quite young, really. He was born in Jamaica, but his parents came to live in, or went to live in Britain, and they lived in Aythorne, near Dover, in the late 1990s. And they ran a post office there. A resident there reportedly said that George and his younger sister were very pleasant children. They then moved to Sandwich, lived in Deal, another city in the UK, and a neighbour from there said that George was rather shy and exceptionally polite, or extremely polite. And after this all happened, George's uncle said it was a huge shock, and that George did not strike him as anyone who would ever do anything of this nature. And he said he must have been in a state of madness. So very sad. It seems like were there not any warnings, any red flags, as people call them? I think when we look back, I mean, obviously it's always easier when you look back. I think when you look back, there were red flags about George. One thing that I think is particularly stands out to me anyway is, why did he have a shotgun? Now, if you're watching from America or any other country where maybe guns are easily available, and I know that in America a lot of people own guns, it's not an unusual thing. It's an unusual thing in Britain. Also, George was an accountant. You know, he wasn't a farmer. I mean, the people that may have guns in the UK are people who are farmers, you know, or hunters. But it's very rare, you know, it's not a common thing to have a gun. I have travelled around this planet 60 times, and I know no one, and have never known or met anyone who owns a gun in Britain. So it's not a common thing. Nobody owns a gun. Even the police don't carry guns after, you know, there's a special, we have the armed sort of section of the police force, but it's not a common thing to carry a gun or to have a gun. Same in Spain, where I live now. I mean, although the police do carry guns in Spain, people generally don't have guns unless they're farmers or hunters. So it's not a normal thing. That's the first thing I just wanted to say. Why did George have a gun in the first place? If he's an accountant, you know, he's why? Why? I just think, why? You know, maybe there's a reason. Maybe he likes going hunting at the weekends, or I don't know. But just seems strange to me that he even had a gun in the first place. And the second thing is, if he had a gun, and then when he, apparently 3 weeks before this incident, he phoned the police or spoke to the police to give the change of address, why was it not flagged up that he was going to stay in the grounds of a school? You know, if my child was going to that school, I wouldn't feel comfortable knowing that somebody who lived there, who had, not the person who was employed actually, but the partner, had a gun, had a shotgun, in the grounds of the school where my child was going to the school. Again, bearing in mind that it's Britain where people just don't have guns. It's not like, oh, well, you know, it's a normal thing or a legal thing. You know, it's not. So, to me, that's maybe a bit of a red flag. The other thing is George was not happy. Everybody knew George was not happy. I think it's generally accepted. He was an accountant, but he had described himself as a career accountant. In other words, someone who's just, he's an accountant as a career, but he didn't particularly like it. And he was looking for a change. He was looking to do something different. I'm trying to look for there was an actual statement that he made on social media, which of course I can't find where I've written it down. But anyway, he'd written a statement on social media saying he was desperate to do something else, to do something better with his days. I think that was exactly the way he put it. So he'd opened a wine business, which apparently wasn't doing very well. I think basically, yes, his life wasn't going very well, mate. And some people say he'd been given too much time to think. Well, maybe he had, but, do you, when you've got time to think, what makes you sit and think about killing your wife and your 7-year-old? But anyway. Oh, and in this school, in Epsom College, there is a rifle range, apparently. So if you're thinking of sending your child to Epsom College, personally, I would think twice about it, because I wouldn't want to send my child to a school that had a rifle range. But anyway, everybody's different. So yeah, he didn't like being an accountant. He described himself as a career accountant, desperate to do something better with his days. And so he had set up this wine business, which was awful, also unsuccessful. Now, one other thing that had happened, which is a definite red flag in my eyes, and which I think applies to the Nicola Bulley case as well, and the Gabby Petito case, and several other cases that I've heard of, and from personal experience also. In 2016, he had called the police to say he had been assaulted by his wife, that she had slapped him across the face. And shortly after making this call, the police were on their way to the property. He phoned again and said, oh no, it was been blown up out of proportion, it wasn't anything important, and don't come. But the police were already practically there, so they did go, and they arrested Emma. They arrested her on suspicion of common assault. But she was then released without charge. So there you go. So that's someone, so Emma had been accused of assault. I think this is quite a common thing that sometimes people do, not only men, but women do it too, accuse the other person of assault or domestic violence, when really it's them. It's almost like they're covering their bases, like, oh, well, I'll accuse them of assault. And then if the police do end up getting involved, I've got my accusation in first. And I think that happens, both men and women do that sometimes. So that to me is strange. So anyway, it was, I'm surprised that didn't sort of flag up when she was becoming a headmistress of a school. Obviously, if she was released without charge, probably nothing, nothing showed up, nothing flagged up when she went for an interview. She must have had police checks, etc. So she still went ahead and got this job at Epsom College. Now, it was founded in 1853, Epsom College, and it's a very posh school, as I say, a lot famous, and it is in the top 1% of schools in Britain. That's how prestigious it is. And for Emma, it must have been fantastic to be employed as the first female headmaster or head teacher at this school. Now, bearing in mind, I suppose, as far as George was concerned, maybe that didn't feel too good, that he was unhappy and miserable in his job and his new business wasn't going well and things he was trying weren't going well, and there was Emma doing really well. you know, I don't understand this, do you? It's like, surely your partner, be it a man or a woman, you should doing well, you should be happy, you should be glad for them, you should be really, really happy for them. And Emma had said when they went to, when she took this job, she said, it has been a really big change for my family. So we've obviously moved house, we've bought a dog, I've got a new job, my husband has got a new job, which wasn't meant to happen, but it did, and my daughter has started a new school. So there has been a lot of change for us as a family, but it's been wonderful. Now that's what she said shortly before she died. Anyway, on the night in question, apparently they had a dinner party. So, you know, they'd had friends over and they'd had a dinner party. I don't know how many friends or how long it went on for, but bearing in mind, it seems like everything seemed fine. You know, so you never know, do you, what's going through. So was he sat there all the way through that dinner party, brimming with resentment, or was it just something later on, an argument that started that, you know, maybe they had a great time at the dinner party? Could have been a one-off comment that somebody made. You know, you just don't know what might have finally triggered. I don't think that he would have just done that suddenly out of nowhere. He's probably been thinking about this for a long time, or certainly been resentful for a long time. But what actually triggered the final thing, I don't know. I just want to say a few things about Lettie as well before I continue. So Lettie was their 7-year-old daughter, and people describe Lettie as vibrant, and she was like the apple of Emma's eye. She was heart and soul, you know. They described her as vibrant, Emma's pride and joy, and an adorable, vibrant little girl with a compelling curiosity. And other things that people said about Emma was that she had a warm, welcoming smile, sparkling blue eyes, full of optimism. I've watched a few videos about Emma, that, you know, videos from the school talking about her move, etc. And she does seem exactly like that, very positive. She's the sort, you can see that she's the sort of person that would lift you up, would make you feel good when you were talking to her. So what happened that night? They had their dinner party, the guests left, and then the sister, Emma's sister, received a very distressed telephone call from Emma. And we don't know the content of this call yet. Now the inquest is not finished yet, you know, they're going through the inquest and they're releasing information as they go. This is something that strikes me very strange about the Nicola Bulley case, because they have said nothing. They haven't said what she was wearing, they haven't said how long they think, you know, I mean, I know the results of the inquest the full results won't come out until June, but normally, as you know, if it's a straightforward case like this one, you know, it's very tragic, but it is straightforward. Bit by bit, they've been releasing, you know, the cause of death, bits and pieces that they've released as they've been established, because there is no secrecy, there is no need to cover anything up. Whereas with Nicola Bulley, everything now, you know, we've gone from just all about Nicola, really. This case sort of, although I'm not saying it wasn't on the news, it was on the news, but it was completely dwarfed by the coverage of Nicola. And it was thrown at us. It was on every media, it was in every newspaper, it was every YouTube channel was talking about it. It was just constant. And now the mainstream media, it's only YouTube now that people are talking about it. So very strange, it seems to me. I've never known anything like that before. That's what makes me feel like there are things simmering under the surface that eventually we'll find out, but it just might take a little while. So this is completely different, you know. As I say, these things have been released, but we don't know the details of the telephone call that she made to her sister. We only know that she made a distressed telephone call to her sister, and her sister went to the property, only to find, unfortunately, that Emma and Lettie were dead, and George. As far as the college is concerned, what happened was, apparently the home that they lived in the grounds was quite near the shooting range, but they don't think there's any, you know, there's no, correlation between that. There's no significance in that. But what happened was that other people living in the college there at that night heard shots and telephoned the police, and the police came along and found all the bodies. So, what do you think? I mean, what do you think went through George's mind? What can we do as a society? What can the police do? What can anyone do to stop these things happening in the future? Because this family, as you'll see from the photos, etc., you know, they seem like the ideal family. You know, you've got a husband and wife living in a nice house. She's got a really good job. All right, he was struggling to find something to, but you know, he wasn't in any, you know, he wasn't going to, you know, go bankrupt or lose, as far as we know anyway, you know, lose, as far as we know, they weren't going to divorce, or maybe there were problems in the marriage, and things we don't know, that maybe she was going to leave him. But though I couldn't find any evidence of that when I was doing my research, but it may not, that might come out later. Maybe that's a reason for it. There was definitely alcohol problems involved, you know, because one of his neighbours had said that he spent a lot of time on his own and he would see him drinking red wine through the window. Now, anyone who looked through my window in the evening would see me drinking red rosé wine, and you know, so I don't want to, you know, a lot of people drink wine. It doesn't mean that they're suicidal and homicidal, you know. But I wonder if you don't know to what extent he'd been drinking. Maybe that night he'd drank, obviously they were at a dinner party, so he maybe drank far too much, and they got into an argument and he's just lost it. But the other thing is, he would have had to go and get his, you see, it's not the same, because we don't, well, as far as I know, and I don't know about gun laws in the UK, because as I say, no, I don't know anybody who's got a gun. I've never known anyone who had a gun, and I don't know if you're supposed to keep it in a locked cabinet, like I think you are in the US, and you're supposed to keep the ammunition separate so that you can't do something just in the heat of a moment. So, you know, because you can't just pick the gun up and shoot someone. You've got to actually get the gun out of the cabinet, get the ammunition, load it up, etc. Now, that might have been what he was doing when poor Emma phoned her sister, you know, so upset. Maybe that's what he was doing. Maybe he was getting his gun, getting his ammunition, and she was just didn't know what to do. So I don't know, again, maybe the actual programme of events, if you like, how it sort of happened. We've got a lot of details at the moment, but probably not the exact timeline, the exact details. When in the future that does come out, I'll probably do a video to tell you about that, how, you know, the exact timeline, if you like, of how it happened. So, I think the other frustrating thing that it must be for the family of Emma, I think, well, they knew George for a start, so they'd been married, I think, for 9 years or something like that, so they'd known him for a long time. But they've got nobody to sort of scream at and say, why did you do this, or ask about the why and the how, because I think sometimes that's something that families want to know. That's what I'd want to know. I'd want to know what exactly happened, why did you do it, what the hell was going through your head. George has taken himself away from all that. George has, taken himself away from any accountability. He obviously couldn't face it. And, he's taken his life because obviously he wasn't happy. I will never ever understand why then you think that because you're not happy and you're going to take your own life. That's your choice. I mean, everyone has a choice. You are in control of your own life. I don't agree with suicide because I think suicide is like, my own particular view on suicide is if you're sent here for a mission, for a purpose, for a reason. If you can't cope with life and you decide to take yourself out of that, I think you just put back again to do it again. I mean, I really do think that. I think it's just like something you've got to do. Sometimes people can do it, sometimes people can't. People that take themselves out of that, I think you are put back to do it again. That's just a belief I have. Now, I'm not saying you have to believe that, or everybody has their own beliefs, but that's my belief. But it is your choice. If you at the end of the day, it's your life, and if you choose to commit suicide, but what gives you the right? What gives you the right to take somebody else's life and take your child's life? Just because you're not happy with life and you think, you have no right. That is their independent life, and they have to make those decisions themselves when they're at the age that they can think about things in that way. They have to take that decision, not you. So I think what I would like to say here as I'm coming to the end of the video is, if you are in a situation with your husband or wife, because it's not only men do this, women do it as well, not so often, but they do. If you're in a situation where you feel like taking your own life or taking the life of your child or your partner, go and get help. It's not right. It's not good. You must not do it. You have no right to take anybody else's life. And even if you're thinking of taking your own life, seek help. Talk to somebody. Maybe you can think differently if you talk about it, but you need to talk about it. If you're in a position where you are the partner of someone who you feel is threatening your life, follow your instincts. Get out. Go. Take your child. Take your children. Don't worry about appearances. I think with Emma, it must have been so difficult because she's got this fantastic job now, but she's in the public eye, and she probably didn't want to admit that her husband she was starting to suspect that her husband was a psycho. I mean, it's difficult. I know that it is. But especially if you have children, you have to follow that little voice inside you. Just do what you think. Forget about the money side of things. Forget about all of it. Because the most important thing is that you are safe. And that your child or your children is safe. And sometimes I think you get this feeling, I'm an overreactor now, I know I am, because I have been in this situation. And I know perhaps somebody's only got to say one little thing and I'm like, oh, what does he mean by that? What does he mean by, he's trying to control me, But it's better that, especially if there's children involved, better that you overreact than you underreact. Don't try and... I know the temptation is to try and sort of play it down. Oh no, he's just because he cares about me, or he's just going through a bad time, or she's just, struggling with things at the moment, but it'll get better. It won't get better without help. Things can get better, but not without help. If you don't get help or they don't get help, nobody gets help, and you'll get better for a little while, and then the next time they're drunk or the next time they have a problem at work, or the next time somebody upsets them, you're the one, or your child is the one that will get it in the neck. Literally. possibly. So there are lots of, I'm going to put some of the organisations that help men and women who are suffering from coercive control or domestic violence. Especially if your partner has a weapon. Here's another clue, especially in Britain. I mean, I know in America it's different because it's more commonplace to have weapons, but don't refuse to live in a house with someone who has a weapon of that kind, a gun. For goodness sake, what did George, an accountant, living in a school, in the grounds of a school, what did he need a gun for? He didn't need a gun, or if it's to go shooting or what, they should have to keep the gun at the shooting range, not actually in the house. I mean, we don't know yet exactly where the gun was kept. And I know you can kill people with other things, but I think it's harder, isn't it? It's much harder to kill somebody, I don't know, with a knife or a hammer, I would imagine. Takes much more effort than it is to shoot someone. I think guns are so removed, aren't they? It's almost like, you wouldn't feel like you were doing it. I don't know, and they're easy and they're quick. So don't have a gun in your house. That's what I would say. Make sure, or if there is, make sure it's locked up and it take quite a long time to get to it, and make sure it's all done properly, not just a gun propped up in the corner. Anyway, okay, so now soon, as I say, hopefully I will be doing another poor Nicola. Do you ever think, poor Nicola, imagine, she never thought that she would be talked about all over the world and her life would be hung out to dry, and she would be accused of being a menopausal drunk. I think it's disgusting, honestly I do. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Things are going to come out soon. So, as always, remember to live and love carefully, wisely. Follow your instinct. Your instinct is right. It really is. And follow it. That's what I would advise. Thank you for watching, I really appreciate it. If you want to learn Spanish, my other channel, I am a Spanish teacher, Spanish and English teacher, and I do have a channel to learn Spanish if that's something that interests you. If not, no problem, I'll see you very soon in the next true crime video. Thank you, bye.